I already mentioned that 2 days after the investigation, Chris moves in, which is such a shady fucking move. This bitch gives me the same vibes that asshole in Patrice's case gave me. Like, she gives me the exact same vibes. Like, you don't even know if your husband's dead yet and you're gonna move in another man. Gives me the same vibes as you don't even know your wife's dead yet and you're gonna change the locks. Like, that's the kind of vibes this gives me. Like, it's just fucked up. You know what I'm saying?
Except for Patrice's husband actually showed up on the show to try to defend himself, where this woman's not even...
He did a bad job at defending himself, I'm just saying. Very bad job.
He at least tried.
Well, what's this bitch gonna say to defend herself? This is all bullshit. It's all a lie. No, it's not.
Oh, no, she did it. I mean, I...
Allegedly. We have to say the word allegedly.
Oh, I thought that was my part.
Allegedly.
You're the one that refuses, or is the one that likes to accuse people right off the bat. I tend to believe this woman's testimony, or her call to her, Gary's brother.
Whatever.
But we'll get to that.
So, she moves this guy in, and Sandy tells the cops, because the cops ask her if she wants to take a polygraph, right? The cops are like, listen, we have talked to Albert, his brother, and he is a little bit concerned that maybe something might be going on where you're involved, right? Because, you know, you're the last person that he would have been with, because he would have been home before he went to work, and he never made it to work. Would you mind taking a polygraph?
Yeah, Albert's like, you first you fucked my brother, now I think you fucked my brother up.
Now I think you fucked my brother up. And these people, like, this is bumfuck redneck Missouri. Let me tell you, these are the type of people that don't like people like me.
Like, okay, let's just alienate more listeners.
Honestly, like... These are the type of people, like, they literally, like, and I'm not saying that, like, it was a joke. It's obviously, I'm not calling these people racist, but it was a joke. But it just, like, I'm shocked that anybody had a lawyer. I'm shocked that Gary had a lawyer. Because it just doesn't seem like commonplace in this area, in this, like, neighborhood area type deal, right? Like, you get what I'm saying. You watched the same episode that I did. I'm kind of shocked that Gary just had a lawyer on standby that was just waiting for him. Like, and yes, he was a friend, so I guess that might explain that, but it feels weird.
He had a farm. He was running a farm, so there's reason to believe that he had assets to be concerned about, so...
I suppose. But Sandy, after the cops ask her for a polygraph, tell them, if you find a body... I'll take a polygraph. Which is
that was nice of them to ask her, you know.
It was very nice of them to ask her, but this is so fucked up. I don't even know why, like, honest to God, like, let's talk about this for a second. Polygraphs are not admissible in court, guys, if you didn't know, because there's so many things that can throw them off, so... I don't even know why they bothered asking her for a polygraph, because even if she had lied, then, like, it wouldn't have meant anything. Like, they couldn't have used that in court. It's not admissible in court. That's the same reason that they needed Chris Watts to confess when he murdered his entire family. Because the polygraph that he did, which stated that he lied, he was being extremely deceptive during this polygraph, was not going to be admissible in court. So they actually needed him to confess.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we use polygraphs. I think it might be more of a
manipulation tactic to get you to confess if we can tell you that you lied on the polygraph.
Even if you can't, it's not admissible in court. If somebody seems to be lying, that's enough for you to go on to be like, okay, we need to turn our attention to this person because it appears that they lied.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but like I said, it
might help with the investigation more and to focus it on a certain thing.
I suppose,
based on the report, even though you can't use it as evidence in court.
Like I said, I really don't understand why we use them, but I'm not going to fight that we use them They're just not admissible in court. Fun fact, little tidbit of information. If you never knew that before, polygraphs are not admissible in court, and even if you fail a polygraph, you are free to leave because they can't use that polygraph to prosecute or arrest you. So you still have the right to remain silent, and you still have the right to leave after you failed a polygraph.
Fun fact, I think this is our first Unsolved Mysteries case. We're not completely hating on the police.
The police.
I mean, I don't think the police
The Popo did a good job.
I think they did fine, but, you burn a body, it's a little hard to find.
Like I said, the police did a good job in this case, at least in my opinion. I feel like they did an okay job in Ray's case, the first episode that we ever did.
Yeah, that was just weird.
They weren't as forceful as they could have been, and if they had been more forceful, it might have helped the case a little bit more, but they weren't, so it didn't. But I think the police did fine. They did great in this case. Another case that we're going to look at where the police did really, really shoddy work is the West Memphis 3 case, which you guys are going to get 2 episodes next week because we're going to be doing that case, and because there's so much information to go through, it's going to be probably 2 or 3 parts. So look out for that. You excited for that, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm looking. I mean, I'm sad that we're done with the Unsolved Mystery episodes. We probably got a couple months before we're going to get more. But I'm excited to hear your cases. Like, I'll get to go in on the podcast blind, without knowing what happened at the end of the story. Like, we watch these episodes of Unsolved Mysteries, so I know the case.
Right.
You look up for more information as well, so there's some of that's added on to these episodes, but I kind of know the juicy main parts of the case.
Right, the juicy bits.
So I'm kind of looking forward to our new format after this episode, and that's going to be with new cases I've never heard.
New cases.
And I'm going to go in blind. I'm not going to know anything. Well, I mean, unless I've heard of the case before, personally, just knowing it and seeing about it, I'm not going to know anything about most of these cases. And we thank the people
on our Facebook group. There's a Facebook group that we are both in, and we asked for a lot of suggestions, and we got a bunch of suggestions. So thank you guys. If you guys are listening to this podcast, we really appreciate your suggestions. If any of you other listeners that are not on Facebook have any suggestions, we encourage you guys to send them to us at unsolvedcomedy@gmail.com, or you can send them to us at our official Instagram page, which is unsolved_comedies. Back to the main point. Right, we kind of went off on a little tangent there. But when the kids were interviewed, because the cops said they really wanted to interview the kids, so they interviewed the kids, and Lena was the first one interviewed, and she was hella defensive of Sandy. Like, she was like, why are you talking to me about this? My mom didn't do anything wrong. You guys are jerks because you're interviewing us. Like, why would you put us through this? Like, she was super defensive of her mom.
I mean, how would you react if you literally witnessed your mom being capable of murder? Like, you witness your mom killing someone? Especially as a 13-year-old, I'd be scared shitless of mommy.
Yeah, Lena's 13 at this point, and we're going to find out some stuff that she watched and experienced and was a part of.
My God, I feel bad for the dreams of that girl.
And I cannot even imagine going through what she went through at such a young age. 13 is such a developmental age. Literally most 13-year-olds are worried about, I don't know, their first boyfriend, and this girl...
going through puberty.
Literally.
She's dealing with blood of a different kind, and I feel bad for her.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you for that info. The girls are also very used to lying for Sandy. According to Brandy, I think it was that said that. She said that the girls were very, very used to lying for Sandy. It was something that they did all the time. For, the smallest little thing, Sandy would be like, hey, we're going to tell them this story. Or, hey, we're going to tell them that story. So the girls were super used to this at this point, so it wasn't anything when on May 11th, the day after Gary's appearance, she gives them the story.
You mean disappearance?
She tells them, If anybody asks, you guys saw Gary left to go get a fighting rooster, and you guys had spaghetti for dinner that night. If anybody asks, the cops, a friend, family, if anybody asks, that's what you tell them. And the girls apparently went with it.
They got blood spaghetti.
That's gross. We also find out exactly what took place that day. Brandy's account of what took place that day. And Brandy says that Sandy sent the girls to look for kittens. Like, they got off the school bus and they came running up to the door to go in, maybe to eat their snack or whatever. And Sandy goes, "Oh my God, guys, there's a cat. And she had kittens in the field. You guys should go look for them. And when you find them, come back." And I assume there was no kittens.
I mean, did they come back?
They obviously came back, but I think at some point, like, it was getting dark, and obviously, if Lena's the second oldest and she's only 13, then the other girls probably don't want to, it's back in that time, you were home when the lights came on. They probably just came home when they realized there weren't any
that's
kittens.
Changed? Children, you don't come back when the lights come on?
Your girl got her ass beat if she didn't come home when the lights were on.
That was, 3 years ago?
I'm 20.
So
like,
not completely
15
off?
years ago?
15?
Yeah. I used to play outside a lot when I was like 5 and 6, like with Davey specifically. Davey's my boyfriend, if you guys didn't know. He was on one of our podcasts earlier.
How cute.
And when we would play, my mom would say, when people start turning on their lights on their houses, you have to come home. And if I wasn't home by the time people were turning their lights on, your girl got an ass whooping.
I don't think you're any of these people's girl.
How was it living in prehistoric times? What time were you expected to be home?
Well, we got to come home when the dinosaurs started roaring a lot and the volcanoes went off, and that's when we got to come home.
That's when you got to come home.
Yeah,
okay.
And we went uphill both ways.
Got you.
Uphill both ways.
So Brandy stays behind because, like I said, the girls have chores. They have... all the girls have a little chore that they have to do every day. And I assume that the other girls had done their chores before school, since some of the chores involved, like, feeding animals and
spreading
picking eggs. So the other girls probably had done their chores before they left that day, and Brandy had not. So Brandy has to milk cows, and she waits outside for a couple minutes because her mom had told the girls to stay outside. And she's like, I know that Gary's going to be home at some point, and I really need to milk the cows. So she goes and she knocks on the door. And remember, this is the oldest child. So she goes and she knocks on the door, and she's like, Mom, come on, let me in. I've got to milk the cows. I need my stuff. I need my supplies to do so.
And Mom was like, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin.
And, Mom doesn't answer. Sandy doesn't answer. So what does any, at this point, I think she probably was about 15. What does any 15-year-old do when she needs to do her chores? She doesn't want to get in trouble. So she just went into the house to get her supplies. She just opened the door and walked right in. And she said that when she walked in, the scene was super weird. Her mom was on the floor and she was scrubbing the floor with bleach water. And she was in shorts, which wasn't like her mother. And she was also wearing a ponytail. And Sandy was, I don't know if she was too much of a narcissist or too into herself or too... I don't know, but she never wore her hair in a ponytail. She always wore her hair down and pretty, and she was always, looking her best.
Well, she had to clean that blood spaghetti sauce.
So Brandy said it was strange to see her mother in, like, shorts and a ponytail, because it just wasn't like her mother at all to wear, that kind of attire. So, like I mentioned earlier, Sandy sits the girls down at the dinner table and she says, this is our story. And the girls, from what we've heard, stick to that story. Lena is told not to let the young girls out of their bedroom that night because Lena's the oldest, and as we find out later, Lena knows exactly what the fuck is going on.
Lena's not the oldest, she's the second
Or
oldest.
she's the second oldest. Lena's the second oldest. And
Mom gives her a gun, like, you little...
She knows exactly what the fuck is going on. She is fully aware. We'll find out later how she is fully aware, but Lena knows exactly what happened earlier that day, and she knows exactly what happened to Gary. So Lena is told to not let the young girls out of their room, and she falls asleep in front of their door. So I don't know if all the younger girls shared a bedroom, or if all the girls shared a bedroom, or what. But she falls asleep. You know, this girl's 13. She has had one hell of a day. You know, we find out later that she actually took part in this murder, and so she's had a fucked up day.
Yeah, a little bit.
So she falls asleep in front of the door, and Robin sneaks out. Robin is, like we talked about, the third oldest. She sneaks out of the bedroom, and she kind of, like, nudges Lena to the side, just kind of pushes her so she can, you know, walk without waking her. And Robin walks all the way to the stairs. And what she sees, she claims, is her mother and Chris carrying what she was pretty damn sure was Gary's body out of the house. She says that you could see the boots he had on, and he was wrapped up in plastic. What do you think about that?
So I've been trying to think about...
other things she could have seen, obviously.
Well, not Brandy necessarily, but I'm trying to think of motives of why Sandy and Chris killed Gary. Now, I don't know if I believe this in any way, shape, or form, because which we haven't got to it yet, but unless I missed it, did Lena ever give a reason? Did she ever ask her mom, or did her mom ever give her some kind of reason of why she killed Gary?
I don't really know. We'll listen to the confession tape in a little bit, and we'll see if Lena maybe mentions anything, because if she did, it would be on that confession tape.
Now, I have no love loss for Sandy or Chris, for that matter. But here, what if Sandy found out Gary was doing something with the girls?
I mean, none of the girls have ever come out and said that, and...
Well, some of them were really young.
I guess.
I'm talking about the youngest ones. If Lena was 13 and she has 4 other siblings below her...
I mean, it's fine to assume that and to make that a theory, but we can't really...
Oh, I'm not saying it happened.
We can't really
like...
assume that happened. Even if we don't have any motive, we can't really assume that happened because there's no evidence.
I'm just trying to think of theories. Like, what reason did she have to kill Gary? Other than she's a psycho killer. But normally
it might have just
motives.
Been easier than going through another divorce. Like, you gotta think, like, back in these days...
Oh, yeah, possibly getting arrested and sent to jail for murder.
Well, she knew her kids would lie for her. And this is in the early 1990s, so divorce is just now starting to become popular. Like... In the Charles Manson case, you hear in the 50s that nobody got divorced. You did not get divorced.
Yeah, but this isn't the 50s. This is
well,
the
I'm
90s.
Not saying it was the 50s.
Everyone got divorced in the 90s. It was like a rite of passage.
I don't think so. Divorce didn't start happening as a commonality until like the 80s, I don't think. Because most people in the 60s and 70s didn't really get married because, you know, it was that whole free love, you know.
And, you know, if this was the 60s and maybe even the 70s, I would say that. But I feel like unless you're dealing with someone who is clinically insane or a psychopath or a sociopath or something along those lines, which I don't know if we can classify her mom as that. She did some shitty things, but you know,
I guess in my head,
murder, there's gotta be a
like
motive
I said,
unless you just like to kill.
It might have just been like preferable to going through another divorce, because even though, you know, in the 80s it started to become commonplace because, you know, obviously people were starting to get married again in the late 70s, and people were realizing that they married these people while they were on drugs, and it probably wasn't the best decision to marry this person, and they started divorcing people. It wasn't really commonplace. Like, even when I grew up in the early 2000s, there was a huge stigma around parents that had divorced and children that had divorced parents. I grew up in the early 2000s. Like, my parents got divorced in 2010, 2011. And there was a huge stigma around me and my sister.
My parents got divorced in the early 90s, but I don't know.
She might have just thought it might have been preferable to going through a second divorce. Like, one divorce is one thing, but she might have just thought it was preferable to kill this man, take any potential life insurance money that he had.
Money is always a great motivator. I just don't know if I see it here.
And then on top of that, she doesn't have to put her children or herself through the shame of having a second divorce.
Yes, because she's really concerned about shaming when she banged her husband's brother. I don't think that's it. That doesn't seem like, she doesn't seem to give a crap about jumping to men. And she doesn't have a history of violence. She likes to bang dudes, and they said she seems to go straight for married dudes, which is shitty in its own right, but she doesn't seem to have she doesn't have a history. She's not a black widow. She doesn't go around just killing people. There has to be some kind of motive that she went in. There's a reason she killed Gary. The question is what that reason is, and that's what I'm curious about. To me, that's one of the biggest mysteries of this case.
Well, one of the things I'm also going to bring up in a little bit is that I have something called Cassville Democrat, which is it's the original news report that came out in 2013 about the disappearance of Lena. And I have Lena's missing person poster as well. It's so odd. I don't even know how to, because a year later, Gary was declared dead. This all happened in 1999, if I'm not wrong. And a year later, he was declared dead. So, like I said, it could have been for life insurance money. It could have been. I don't know for sure. But it's just odd that a year later he was declared dead, and there was no evidence of that.
Well, they didn't find any bodies.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, Alyssa Turney has been missing since 2001. That's 19 years this year. 20 years next year, and she's still not declared dead. She is still considered to be a missing person.
When does which we haven't got to it yet, but when does Lena first call Albert?
Let's skip ahead a little bit. The girls move with their mother and Chris from Cassville to St. Louis to Sligo. They end up in Sligo in August of 2000. Lena was said to work a few jobs there. I'm trying to find out. So in 2000, if Lena was 17 in 2003, she would have been 14 in 2000. So I don't know what kind of job she was working as a 14-year-old, but she was working a bunch of different jobs.
At 14, I worked as a paper boy. I believe around 14 or 15, my brother worked at a restaurant, like under the table.
Under the table.
He worked as a dishwasher.
Illegally.
So there are jobs, ice cream places. They like to hire minors. A lot of ice cream places, like local ice cream shops,
yeah,
they'll hire minors around 14 or 15 for a summer job and stuff like that. There's places that will do it. There's just rules about hiring minors.
Well, and it just, Robin says that she worked a couple of different jobs because she really didn't want to be at home with her mom that much, which is understandable.
I wonder why.
But she was also on edge and very distant. Robin says that she noticed that. Lena changed at this point, and she was very, very lonely, which I can only assume is from bearing the burden of a man's murder at the age of 13, 14, and having nothing to like, not able to tell anybody, nobody to talk to, nothing, you know, she can't put anything out there. It just, like, I can only imagine that that's where her loneliness came from, because none of her sisters are holding this burden, like, you know, except for Robin, who is not really sure what she saw. She's just scared because she knows that she saw her parents carrying something big out of the house, you know, so obviously, you know, Lena is holding this fucking massive weight on her shoulders, and I can only assume that's why she was lonely, because the same type of loneliness is seen in people that don't speak out about sexual abuse, which is another huge weight to bear. And I'm not saying that Lena was sexually abused, I'm just saying that this is the same type of weight.
Well, what if maybe she was?
I don't think
maybe
so.
Maybe she didn't want to admit to it, but then she realized that
I feel like she would have told her sisters that's why it happened. I feel like she would have too.
That's why I'm not really looking too far into that theory, right. But
I just think that she was a 14-year-old, and she was extremely lonely because she was bearing something that had equal weight to having been sexually abused her entire life and being ashamed of it. She was holding on to having witnessed, been a part of, and an accessory to a man's
made her
murder.
Accomplice.
Exactly. So, you know, she's holding on to all of this information, and, you know, she's still very close to Albert. She cares about Albert. She cares about that side of her family, you know, so she probably felt extremely guilty.
Yeah, I bet she did.
So, the next thing that we hear is from Richard, who, if you've forgotten, is Gary's friend and attorney. And
okay.
Lena, according to him, Lena confided in a boyfriend at some time that all of this had happened, that she was a part of this murder and how her mother did it, and, like, she confided in this boyfriend everything that happened, and he was like, you have to tell that side of your family what happened. Like, you can't hold on to this. They deserve to know that their brother, their son, their father will never come home. They deserve to know that. Which I could totally agree with. You know, I would much prefer to know that somebody in my family is dead and just know what happened to them as opposed to believing that they're missing and never knowing what happened to them.
Yeah, but at the same time, she's afraid of her mom. She
You're
witnessed what her mom was capable of.
You're right. But she does make the right decision, in my opinion, and she decides to go to Albert. Because she knows Albert very well. He used to be her stepfather before Gary. She knows him. And she decides to confide in him on June 26th.
Saw Mommy kill your brother now. Sorry, continue.
You're disgusting.